We're back covering part 2 and 3 of our topic today, care. It would certainly make a lot more logical sense if I went in order, so my apologies. But again, there's a method to my madness. I started with R, the rosary, because it was my first love. And that first love paved the way for me to fall deeper in appreciation and love for the other parts of care. First, rosary. Second, it drew me to the appreciation of Mass, of E, Eucharist. And then quickly thereafter, A, adoration, which brings us to parts 2 and 3 of care. The highest act of adoration is Mass itself. Even when I say this, I am reminded by an old Latin saying that was shared to me, lex orandi, lex credenti. This translation is the law of praying, is the law of believing. Essentially means that prayer expresses belief. In care, we speak of the reception of the Eucharist in Holy Mass. Saint Peter Julian Edimar, the great saint of the Blessed Eucharist, he used to be called the champion of the Eucharist, one of my personal favorite saints. He once said, "Why is Jesus Christ in the Eucharist?" Many answers could be given to that question. The one that sums them all runs as follows: because he loves us and because he wants us to love him so intimately. Love, that is the very motive for the institution of the Eucharist. Without the Eucharist, Christ's love would be nothing more for us than a lifeless love, a love of the past, which we would quickly forget and which it would be most excusable for us to forget. Love has its laws, its requirements, which the Eucharist alone fully satisfies. On account of the Eucharist, Jesus has every right to be loved because in it, he gives us a proof of infinite love. In our reception of his very body through the Eucharist, we live the famous saying, "You are what you eat." Right, Grayson? In receiving more frequently and more reverently our Lord in the Blessed Sacrament, we receive the grace to be more like him. As Christ is the one true center of the Eucharistic celebration around which all the rest evolves, the regular celebration of this sacrament should and is the center of care. Without this regular sustenance, all our efforts become futile and certainly less effective. It is through the holy sacrament of Mass we are fed, nourished, and we relive the very essence, the very sacrifice on Calvary by which our salvation is fully realized. After receiving Jesus in the Holy Communion, we then are invited to spend time in adoration. A, our third topic. He is, after all, a prisoner of love in the tabernacle. He chooses to not press himself into our space, but wait for us to enter into his. How often do things of great significance happen, and we immediately feel the urge to share the news, to post, to Instagram, to Snapchat. A desire to communicate our emotions, our thoughts, hardships, excitements, and anxieties stem from God's desire to draw us to him. Adoration is where these both are quenched and our love is nurtured. It's our quiet time. I call it the quiet hour. And sometimes, believe it or not, it's not an hour. For me, sometimes it's just 5 minutes or 15 minutes or even just a visit, a quick genuflect that sustains my daily efforts. Again, I started this talk saying of how much sinner I am. By no means am I a master expert on this topic, but I've encountered the power of care, of the rosary, of the Eucharist, and of adoration. In moments, in my deepest moments of despair, um, I grew up in a very difficult childhood, and Mama, the Blessed Mother, comforted me, and she led me to the refuge of Mass. And it is during high school I would take refuge in daily Mass. I remember vividly 6:30 in the evening. I would go to Mass and just let it all out, let it go, let all the insecurities of adolescence, of not fitting in, of sinning, just kind of at the foot of the altar, and visit Christ in His truest form. And it is with this invitation that I stand here today as a father and trying to impart those same lessons to my children. And I am privileged to share this with you. C.A.R.E, confession, adoration, rosary, Eucharist.